Welcome back to CMS-Connected, the content management industry's only news commentary show. I'm your host, Pyburn, joined as always by Scott Liewehr. And today, the topic of conversation is all about the digital transformation of technology into virtually everything. Now, according to markets and markets research, the global digital transformation market's expected to grow to over $369 billion in just 4 years. Yeah, 2020, just 4 years away. That's kind of scary. Now, with North America expected to be the largest market on the basis of spending and adoption of digital transformation market. Now, although the impact of digitization is really not new at this point in time, the digital economy is entering a new age that presents unprecedented challenges for all CEOs, CMOs, and CTOs. Basically anybody with the C in their title. Now, digital tools are invading the business environment, provoking significant changes in the way we work, communicate, and sell. Now, everyone seems to be talking about the digital transformation from the CIO perspective, but we want to take a look at it the digital marketing perspective, and we welcome our extremely knowledgeable and esteemed guest, Leah Kinthaert. Leah, welcome in. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me. This is a beautiful venue.
Oh, and of course, you know, Leah's been off to the side enjoying some cocktails of her own, I'm sure, right?
Later on.
Later on. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Leah, let's kind of get right into this right now. Why should an organization be concerned about digital transformation right now?
Sure. Daniel Newman wrote in Forbes last year that an organization will be able to hold on to their core group of customers, but unless they go through a digital transformation, they simply won't make it. I see companies really need to transform in two ways right now. It's very simple. Outwardly in how they respond, actually how they utilize the newest technologies to be the most competitive, and inwardly in how they're responding to how both consumers, customers, and their employees are using technology. I can give the example of the construction industry, for example. Really interesting stats, 40% of construction costs are labor. Construction worker's day, 29% of that day is spent idle, waiting for paper permitting. So I know there's a stat that if you were to apply enterprise mobility to that equation, you could actually save the cost of 1 day per week per employee. So it's really amazing to me that organizations are still doing paper-based administration. That inward part, that marketing aspect, which is again what I'm going to be talking about today. We know consumers are using technology in radically different ways, and it's constantly changing, it's moving really fast, and yet marketers are really pretty much still marketing like it's 2005. So we're losing our customers, and we're not getting new customers.
Scott, that's perfect. We were talking about 2010 earlier, now we're talking about 2005.
Just drink up, we keep getting
dialing back
further back. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly, and it's funny that you talk about this. We at DCG, we talk about digital outside and digital inside with respect to digital transformation. So perfect, great to hear. But maybe take a step back for us and tell us a little bit about, tell us what is digital transformation in the first place.
Sure, I made that in and outside thing up, so that's cool. Basically, some people would say that we're in the third phase of embracing digital technologies. The first would be digital competence, the second was digital literacy, and now digital transformation. As you all know, digital is nothing new, digital marketing, we've been doing it since the 90s and since the 2000s. However, what's changing is we're going from a one-way sort of relationship to a two-way relationship. And consumers, you touched upon this, consumers are actually demanding that conversation be two-way. And again, as marketers, we're posting a tweet, we're sending an email, we're posting an ad, and we're really not touching upon that two-way conversation. If you look at, for example, millennials, only about 1% of millennials trust a brand because of an ad. They really want authenticity. And to get that authenticity as marketers, we have to totally do a 180 on how we're marketing. And so what's coming into play now is something I'm sure you all know. We talked about content marketing. And I like to describe content marketing in a very different way. You put the two words together, content and marketing, it actually changes the meaning of both words. So content needs to be very relevant to your customers. And that's where that marketing strategy comes in, is making sure that content is relevant. But with the marketing aspect, it's actually not even marketing at all. It's providing useful information to your customers, to consumers, so they can do their jobs and so they can make informed purchasing decisions. doing that sort of tactic with content marketing, as well as providing a space for consumers, or in the case of B2B, for people to get in touch with their colleagues and learn. So both learning from your content and also from each other. And really being where the action is and curating and creating those conversations. That's where that whole tactic lies.
Yeah, I was going to say, I come from the marketing background, really, and with that marketing background, you have a lot of, like you said, I want to post this, I want to just send and spread my message up there, as opposed to opening up that kind of two-way street, as you said. And that's kind of the important thing that as marketers and content marketers, we always have to remember at the end of the day. So talk to me about the challenges. What do you see as the biggest challenges within this digital transformation?
Sure. I think it goes back to that whole idea that we're in this third phase of embracing digital technologies. A lot of companies, a lot of CEOs might say, we already did the digital transformation. We have a blog, we're tweeting, we have email, and it's complicated. Maybe years ago you could tell a group of marketers or a team, well, we need to transition from the paper-based or the ads into digital. Now you're telling a marketer, okay, that way you tweeted in 2013 or even last year, that's not working. So it can get frustrating, both to people who have this kind of knowledge of new marketing and people who really want to keep things the way they were. There is a flip side, though, that there are some positives with digital transformation. A guy named Bar Seitz, a McKinsey analyst, he says that actually he calls digital transformation a Trojan horse for a broader business transformation. And he sees that it has really positive impacts on changing the organization. He also says, for example, that technology or staffing, those things aren't the most difficult things in digital transformation. And I found this to be true, but changing the culture, that is one of the most difficult aspects. So really, and it goes back to that idea of resistance and really being able to approach that and make those changes.
And Scott, we see that. I mean, we were just at the Internet, Reloaded event just last month, and they were talking about actually getting people to buy in, right? I mean, exactly what we're talking about here. I mean, kind of give me your 2 cents. I know you have the next question lined up, but I want to get your thoughts on that.
No, sure. I think it's all that we've talked about. I think that the McKinsey guy was spot on. Not even that it's a Trojan horse, but I think it's explicitly, intentionally a business transformation effort. I mean, I think you're starting to even see the notion of E being dropped. E-commerce, it's now just commerce. I mean, it's just like digital is business now, and if you don't have a digital aspect to your business, then I don't think that you're going to be in business for very long ultimately. And so this notion of transforming digitally is transforming certainly the business, how it works inside and outside, as you talked about. And certainly something that we haven't mentioned a whole lot about is data as well, and the use of data within marketing, within the organization, and how you're going to be able to use all that and tie it all together to make yourselves more efficient, more effective. But I wonder, so this is viewed by many as this big gigantic elephant, right? And everybody knows how you eat an elephant is kind of piece by piece. So how and where do you start to see some results quickly? How long does it take to start to see you've decided I want to take this on, you've got maybe buy-in from the very top. At what point do you start to see some effects?
Sure. I actually will touch upon that idea of data being an issue. I'm a big convert. I love using those best practices, and I found it's overwhelming and shocking how once you apply them, it's like either baking a cake or a mathematical formula. Like a guy named Joe Polizzi, who runs the Content Marketing Institute, he talks about this 4-1-1 formula. And I can't stop talking about that to people. I'm like, if you apply it, it's instant gratification. You're going to get that response. You're going to get really overwhelming response. What I'm actually finding is, if you think about it, for the past 10 years, yes, we have all this great marketing automation, but that marketing automation is really measuring that digital marketing that I actually call traditional marketing that we've been doing for 10 years. So it really does a good job of tracking links back to your site. But if you're going to start doing really unusual, like providing this information and using social media in very new ways, it makes sense. I'm not surprised that it's really difficult to kind of track and measure that marketing. So I think that's going to be a challenge moving forward, or it is a challenge.
I think just add one thing there. Tim Walters wrote a piece for us last week on Digital Clarity's website about Marshall McLuhan, who was a very famous professor, and he talked about how you essentially even though we make advances in things like technology, we always kind of look at them through the lens of the kind of last version of that technology. And so we don't fully exploit the new technology for what it can be, because our mindset is in that of the kind of latter. So think about, for example, when you transition from radio to TV, right? You didn't use the full it was like radio shows before, they were these just interactions, and you went to TV and it was literally the guy in front of you just kind of reading the news, and that's what it looked like. And it was the same way that he used to read the news in front of just the microphone before, right? And only now you're starting, not only now, but now you start to see in the news, it's lots of video, incorporation on site, whatever, all those capabilities of what television brought. Same sort of thing I think here is you might have many new capabilities that these new technologies are affording you, but we're thinking about them in our last mindset, the way we used to do marketing, and we're applying those old habits and behaviors to these new capabilities, and so we haven't really unleashed the full capabilities of the new medium, if that makes sense.
Yeah. One of the things I want to ask, I kind of want to dial it back, and when we talk about how can we see results, I mean, I think we have to start with the team, right? So let's talk about the team itself, the hiring, the training. These are the people that are on the front line. When we talk about being your brand voice, the people that you hire have to have your brand voice. They have to have full buy-in, especially when we're talking about external publications. With that in mind, when we're going about the hiring and we're going about the training, what are some of those personality traits? Talk to me about that. What are the personality traits that you look for when we're actually trying to hire someone that's going to be your brand voice or going to be leading the charge of this for a successful digital transformation, really?
Sure, I might surprise you with that answer. It might not be, very textbook.
That's perfect.
We like
surprises. I like that. That's what makes it fun.
I like the idea of, I think your new hire really needs to have humility. And as you're going in, you hire someone who's obviously highly skilled. They know all the amazing new best practices of content marketing. They come into the position, but those people really need to respect the traditional marketers who are on the team, the product marketers who are probably working with the company for 5 or 10 years, because you do have to be open to change. Because even some of these best practices, sometimes you do have to manipulate them a little bit and bring in some of the older traditional marketing best practices. That's been my experience. Another thing with that humility is you're going to, very quickly learn about your audience, your customers. You'll learn about what the best channels are. You say, okay, these are the most effective channels for us. But then suddenly, boom, things change in 6 months. So that humility, really being adaptable. And there's a really interesting thing. I think we're going to start to see more very non-traditional backgrounds in our marketers. I go back to that guy, Bar Seitz, but the McKinsey guy, he talks about, this might not be that unusual, but Apple has a designer on their executive team. Burberry just hired as a designer as their CEO. You're going to see a lot more journalists being hired as marketers. Even in my experience, 4 years ago, I remember talking to HR recruiters and they were like, well, are you a software marketer? Are you an insurance marketer? What do you do? A year ago, it's like, wow, that's amazing. You've done B2B and B2C, that's great. Or you can strategize content across different areas. That's an awesome skill, that's what we want. Additionally, for hiring people, it's really important. McKinsey talks about a culture of constant change, really having someone who's, for example, had an experience with startups, who's very entrepreneurial, because content marketing is still very new. So someone who can come in and meet these challenges with completely original ideas sometimes. So that's some of the things I think are really important with teams.
Interesting.
Scott, who's on your staff? I mean, backgrounds. I mean, pretty much everybody has a similar background, right?
Yeah, a little bit. We have somebody who knows something a little bit about content marketing, certainly in Robert Rose, who works with Joe Polizzi extensively. Robert is part-time with us at DCG as an analyst and does a lot of writing with us. But he's
full-time rock star.
But
too.
he's full-time rock star, absolutely, 100%. He's actually guested for me in this show even once before, and he's the chief strategy officer with Joe Polizzi over at the Content Marketing Institute. So we know a little bit about that for certain. But I think you're right. Certainly, there's an awful lot of. We might talk about content marketing day to day, but there are certainly many organizations out there that, this is something fairly new to them and embracing. But I'm interested, you talked about some of those personality traits. Informa brought you in to be its digital transformation person. What was it that kind of got you into this space?
Sure. Well, I pretty much fell into marketing. And I have to say, from what I know about the marketing of, say, 1996, it really just wouldn't have been interesting to me, like the marketing 2016, because it's really all about, and no offense to people, but it's really all about like learning about your customers. Any given day for me is actually for me, it's very exciting. On a given day, I'm strategizing content about biotech in India, or I'm looking at the newest group of young people. You talked about adapting to 10 to 18-year-olds, for example, hybrids. That's going to be a whole new generation of people we're going to need to learn to market to. So on a given day, I'm really kind of dabbling in lots of different ideas, immersing myself into learning about customers. It's really exciting. Another thing I think, the reason I got into this digital transformation is most of the organizations I worked for were early adopters. So people were selling insurance differently. People were the beginnings of e-commerce, the beginnings of consumer packaged goods online, the beginnings of furniture online. And they were really providing very original solutions to unique challenges. So also, I at the beginning of my career, I was exposed to people like Guy Kawasaki, Gary Vaynerchuk. I got to see them speak. I will be honest, I loved what they said. I was really excited. I don't think I 100% understood it. And I definitely didn't apply it back then. Maybe because the organization didn't allow for me to do that, or for whatever reason. And so honestly, that gives me patience. It took me a while to become the marketer I am. So that sort of exposure. I think right now what's happening, there's a statistic that only 5% of organizations feel that they've mastered digital to a point of differentiation from their competitors. And I'm not surprised by that statistic. It's a really confusing time right now for people. We went from doing non-digital to digital. It was a different media, but the same method. Now we're turning marketing on its head. We're saying, instead of trying to put ourselves in front of our competitors, we're actually saying, hey, we're acknowledging our competitors. We're actually sometimes talking to our customers about our competitors to educate them. It's actually a really exciting and disruptive time to be a marketer.
Awesome. Very cool stuff indeed. Leah, before we let you go, obviously, thank you so much for taking time out to join us on the set. Where can folks find you? They want to get in contact with you. Where do they find you?
Sure. Well, the best way would definitely be Twitter. My name _ Leah Kinthaert. And I'm really excited to hear if anybody has any answers for me about some of these challenges that I brought up that I'm going through. And also, anybody has any more questions, I'd love to, explore and discuss further.
Great.
Thank you very much for coming.
Leah Kinthaert, folks. I am Tyler Pyburn. He is Scott Liewehr. We'll be right back when we talk with Amy Martin in just a few seconds right here on CMS Connected.
Your job is to cut through the noise. To succeed, you need to reach out to your target audiences in real time with messages that speak to them. You can't let technology get in the way of your brand. That's the spirit. First Spirit is a powerful solution that helps you effectively communicate and engage with your target audience. Get an awesome ROI. Success in the market means your message got through to the right people at the right time in the right way. And that's why you need First Spirit. Get started with digital marketing. Visit www.espirit.com now.